session. Our next session is entitled Discipline in the Choral Classroom. And this is one of those things that I've found over the years that a lot of young teachers ask for help with. They feel like they're getting eaten alive by students and their behavior problems and things like that. And we've got a couple of teachers who I feel like do that really, really well who are going to share with you. We have Mrs. Amber Overton, who's been teaching 10 years at Alma Middle School for 8 years, and now at Alma High School with me for the last 2 years. And Mr. Curtis Miner, who has 20 years experience at Washington Junior High and currently at Fulbright Junior High. We're going to hear from Amber first. So Amber Overton, take it away, please.
Hey everybody, I'm currently at school, and so you can hear the national anthem and probably announcements in just a second. So I'm not sure if I should wait. Yay! And now everyone says the pledge, and then I'm sure they'll have an announcement. So if they have an announcement, I'll pause for a second if you guys heard that. Hey, everybody, I'm going to share my screen with you guys so we can start talking. That's a deal.
Good morning, Ages. I'm Chloe Lewis from Almadeca. Name the entrepreneurs winners were.
Okay, so discipline in the classroom. This is going to be with myself and Curtis, and I'm going to first talk about, I'm going to pause.
And in the first year of working without his brother, he came close to 200.
Amber, I think you can go ahead. I think we can hear you fine above it. Go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay. So first we're going to talk about the norms that I have in my classroom for overall things. I'm Amber Overton, 10 years of teaching, like Matt said. Classroom norms for me, we will all sing, participate, which participation for me is solfeging your own music. I like knowing that the kids know how to solfege everything on their own. They have the ability to do that. And then using hand signs. Those are norms for every single time we sing for me. So this is the main thing I can talk to you about today, is to be yourself. Kids will see anything that is fake. They will see anything that doesn't work with your personality. They will see through that. They're very intelligent. I hope that you can still hear me. It's kind of loud in here for me. So underneath that, it says you can't mimic another teacher, and that is the key. When you find a teacher that is so inspirational, you want to be just like them, you want your rehearsal to be just like them, that's fine if you take things from them for your classroom management, take things for them that work for discipline. That's great. You know, use all of the sources that you have. But when you try to mimic a certain teacher and that's not you, it will not work. So if that's something that you're doing right now, trying to mold yourself into a certain teacher, stop and figure out who you are as a teacher. So these are things that I do that help me out with classroom management. The first thing is I set extremely high expectations, especially for my non-auditioned groups. They are my main priority with setting the high expectations, because I want them to succeed and I want them to feel successful. And when you set high expectations, there's really no gray area to kind of fail. Even if your expectations are really high and they just need a little bit, they can still rise above where they were originally. So high expectations are a must. I like controlled chaos. And when I say controlled, at any point I could stop it, right? I don't like chaos with standing around the room. I don't like chaos with moving like that unless we're doing Kagan, which now we can't. So COVID. But I let my kids have conversations. I let jokes happen. I let enjoyment of music happen. If we sing something that is so nice, I let them enjoy what they just heard. And it gets the class a little bit relaxed, but then you can go back to having control of something. Because if it's so strict that they feel like they can't even breathe in class, that's kind of a deal for them. I only ask twice for their attention. An example is I will say, if you hear my voice, snap once. If you hear my voice, snap twice. By the end of that, they have either heard someone snapping or they've heard my voice. And so I do two of them because not all of them are going to hear the first one because I'm not going to be loud. I can't yell. I can't physically speak loud. That's not who I am as a person. I'm pretty soft spoken. And so I will just say in my normal voice that I'm talking to you guys, I'll say, if you hear my voice, snap once, snap twice. That's it. After that second one, no one is talking. And I set that procedure at the very beginning of the year. I remind them every single day for 2 weeks, right? Because it takes a long time for them to process it. And so I say, this is it. This is how I work. When I want your attention, this is what I'll do. I'll say, hear my voice, do this, hear my voice, stomp once, hear my voice, raise your hand, give a high, whatever. I can't give a high five now, obviously. But things that work for me, that's what I do to kind of get the attention focused on what I need to do at that time. That works for me. It works well. I'm not the type of personality that I can walk into a room and have attention right then. I'm not tall. I'm not loud, right? I don't have this just authority in who I am physically. I don't have that. And so I use these two things. Some of you may be able to walk into a room and then all the kids just stare at you like, what are they going to say? That's cool. I don't have that. And so for me, it's a two, and that's it. After the second one, if you continue to talk, I'll give you a reminder. I'll say, hey, that was my second procedure. Let's move on. If that continues, then that individual will have a consequence that happens with that. The next one, this is my favorite slash most important. Be quick. Um, when you spend time on one discipline area or one child that is causing a lot of issues, when you spend so much time on that one person, you are beating them into the ground basically, and then you don't get what you need to do in class. That's not fair for anyone. So when you move quickly, you just keep rolling with all the things. I address the situations straightforward. I say it like it is, stop doing this, stop doing that, and then I move on. I don't allow kids to talk back and forth to me. And it's not because I don't care what they're saying, it's because I don't want this banter back and forth. And it's not that I want the last word in a conversation. It's really because once you get this back and forth, if you're having a bad day, you may say something that you'll regret. You may say something catty to a 10th grader, and then they'll remember something like that. And so I don't give any time for this back talk. I don't discipline and then wait for a response. It's a discipline and move on. Discipline, move on. Talk to the class, move on. Forget about it. Don't bring it up the next day. They don't need you to remember it at all. They just need you to move on, correct, and then move on. Examples: yesterday in class, the altos were singing. So I was singing and playing the piano, sitting at the piano bench playing. And of course, since we can't sit close to each other, instead of punching each other or pinching each other or pulling hair, whatever they usually do, now they throw things in class. I don't know why. So I heard something fall. I saw it and then I heard it fall. So I thought, okay, they're going to realize that it made a noise and they're going to stop because the altos are singing. Okay. It didn't happen. Instead of stopping rehearsal, instead of stopping the altos who were all participating, because I looked to make sure that they were still focusing, they weren't focused on the noise. When I realized that they were still focusing, instead of stopping, As I was singing, instead of singing what their solfege was, I sang to the basses. So if they were singing like do, do, ti, right, if they were singing that, I'd be stop it, basses. That's exactly what I did. Okay. As I was playing the piano, and I sang that, and I didn't even look their direction because it's not a big deal. That's not a deal. They are kids. They're going to do things like that because that's in their nature. They're going to do it. I didn't stop the altos. Okay. They got to continue on everything and they were focused on their solfege. So they didn't know that I was talking to the basses, but my basses did. And they stopped yesterday. If they don't stop, which is what happened in another class with the girls, they didn't stop when I told them to stop talking. They were having full on conversations that I could hear over another voice part. That doesn't fly with me. I do not let other sections of the choir speak louder than a section, than a section that is singing through their part. I don't like it. I don't think that it's appropriate. I think that it's rude to the people that are singing. However, I allow soft conversations. And so at this point, the altos were way too loud with their conversations. They were taking kind of control of the class. So I let the basses finish the, 6 or 8 measures that I wanted them to learn at that time. And when they finished, I stopped and I put all of my attention toward the altos. And I reminded them of, hey, you can have a conversation when another part is singing, but it cannot be louder than them singing or me playing the piano or me talking. If you want to whisper, go right ahead. That's fine with me. I'm okay with it. I said, if this happens again, now comes the consequence of if they don't. So I reminded them again because they're kids. You have to remind them daily. I reminded them again of what my procedure is. I reminded them don't talk loud enough for everyone else to hear or to be an issue with another class, another area. And then I said, if this persists, or continues on with every single class that we're doing, then you guys will be moved. That's the first thing that's going to happen. If that continues, it will be a lunch detention. And that's for me. I use those things specifically for my class. And it works very well. The quick movement works well. No one got their feelings hurt with the throwing of whatever it was. The altos didn't get their feelings hurt. They just realized, okay, if I want to stay in this position, then that's my choice to do this. I never raised my voice and yelled at everyone. I never got angry over what was happening, even though we're kind of in a crunch, for time for Christmas things. And so it works really well when you move quickly. So I have highlighted, you should too. Move fast with discipline. Okay. Don't linger there. Lingering in a discipline area gets all heavy feelings, gets all awkward in the room. I'm not a fan of issues between people. I'm not a fan of fighting. I'm not a fan of um, unrest or something that's not peaceful. I'm very much a peaceful moderator kind of thing. And so moving quickly helps with that a lot. Next, okay, it takes a while, a real long time to figure out what you really want your classroom to look like and the discipline that you want. Some of you may want no talking ever. We're going to get done. This is how we do it. Some of you may want to be a little bit more relaxed. That's fine if it works for you in your class. If it works for you, that is fantastic. Okay, continue moving on that. This next thing is to lean into your strengths. And Matt, I don't know how to do that, Matt. I'm sorry that I'm pausing this because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to turn my video on. You guys can hear me but not see me?
Yeah, no big deal. Just like to see your smiling face. That's all.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm on a Chromebook. Do you have a way for me to show my face?
Uh, Unless your stop video on the bottom left is on, I don't know what else.
Oh, no, sir. All I can see are um, things for my slide.
Okay,
Okay,
well, keep on going.
I will smile at you afterwards, I promise.
Okay,
The not last thing, the next thing is to lean into your strengths and work on your weaknesses. When you have a strength, you should definitely take advantage of that strength. If your strength is sitting at the piano and playing the parts for your kids, then you should play the parts and listen around as you're playing these parts together to help out the kids. If your strength is not the piano, then don't try and sit there and play all of the parts. Put some of that on the kids for sight reading. Let's carry your own part here, or let's sing it to where you're comfortable. That could be a strength that some of you have is sight reading. Some of you can sight read each individual part. Some of you can stand in the middle of your choir and sing with the altos, and then the next measure sing with the sopranos. Maybe that's your strength to do that vocally instead of sitting at the piano. And so figuring out your strengths that work in class, that will help out with discipline. Figuring out if telling the kids beforehand how you handle things, which is what you should do. If you are very particular about something, then the kids should know that you are particular about it. And that could be a strength of yours, to be very organized and know know the direction that you want your class to go in. The next thing, do what works for you to stay sane and pleasant to be around. Oh my goodness. If you are hateful every day, which I don't think any of us intentionally want to be hateful, but if you're hateful or if you have catty remarks, I think maybe you need to think of what will get you at more contentment, more at peace, more at where should I be as a person. Because kids don't want to be around a teacher that is frantic all the time, or a teacher that is rude, or a teacher that is frowning or just sad all the time, right? Um, this is this is a big one. So you need to set things that are going to help you be a pleasant person. If you set goals for yourself to be pleasant and to know at the end of the day that you've done everything that you can do discipline wise, and that you have navigated through a day and it hasn't left you burned out, then that's where you should go to. My first year of teaching sixth grade boys, it was rough for me because 45 sixth grade boys in a class, and where do I even begin on discipline? I didn't have any brothers growing up. I, didn't have a lot of guy friends at that time. So it's like, what makes you a person, and what is acceptable and what's not acceptable? And it took me that entire first semester to realize that what I was doing wasn't going to work for me. So I stopped and really tried to figure out what was going to work for me, and that's how I got control of the room, and then that's how I stayed sane at the end of the day and was able to still smile and um not dread their class coming, right? Not dread that fourth hour, fifth hour. And so when you have your ducks in a row, basically with just how you're going to discipline, and then you just do it. That's the last point on here, is to be consistent. If you set your goals in mind and set these, sorry about the bell. If you set these goals in mind and you are able to just be consistent with it, then no one can say anything about your discipline if you're consistent with it. If you do the same thing with one student as you do the other, if you do the same thing one day that you do the next, they will always know what to expect. And your kids will not be blindsided by a bad day that you have. They won't be blindsided by, oh, she's in a bad mood today, we can't do that, right? So if you're just consistent, if you are a consistent person, then that will help with discipline completely. I did something that is kind of maybe a little bit scary with my kids, but I'm real open with them. Over the past week, I've asked them how I have classroom discipline and classroom management. And of course, one of the first kids said that I beat them. Obviously, I do not. So, of course, it was a laugh in the class, and then we moved on. But a few of them said that I'm relatable, that they trust
We need
me,
the following students in the
that
office, Paul Marston.
I make jokes, which I do make jokes.
Shayla
I make
Waltrip,
some funny
Megan
jokes that I
Patton,
laugh at
Kate
only
Vincent,
sometimes. Sometimes they don't
to
laugh
the
at my
office.
jokes, which is completely fine because then they know your personality. And then another said I'm a counselor to them and they will listen to me because I know what they're going through. I know about them. So that leads me actually to my next topic, which is the importance of relationships. Relationships between you and kids are top priority. If you don't know that a kid has talent, if you don't know about their character, if you don't know about their personality, if you don't know about what they've been through, then a lot of times they could be a discipline problem. They could be an issue for you if you don't know about them, if you don't know where they come from. Down here, the highlighted part that says, know your kids and you'll control the room without effort. Control may be a strong word there. I really just want you to realize that when you know each of your kids, you'll know how to handle whatever comes your way, whatever happens. If they come in with a terrible attitude and you
We
know
need the following
already
students to the
that they've
office,
had
Mark Robertson,
home
Hunter
issues, that
Mitchell,
they've had
Megan Ford,
relationship issues with a girlfriend,
Evan
boyfriend,
Sanderson,
that they had to
Michael
watch their
Shannon, Riley
toddler
Venable,
sister
to the
for the
office,
night. You know, if they're the only adult at home, then that actually gives you some grace for them for the day. And maybe instead of being like, you know, why aren't you singing? Why sing with us today? All this kind of stuff. You can actually ask them about their personal life before you go into let's sing today, and then they'll be more apt to talk to you, to relate to you, all the things. The students definitely deserve to know you as a human, as a person. Um, a lot of my jokes, a lot of my stories come from my kids and my dog, who is a terror right now, and my husband. So, my jokes, my story time, I let them in on my life, and then I deserve to know my kids. And so, I will actually ask them questions that I want to know the answer and I remember the answer. Those kind of things are big for me. This year, I had two new students to Alma. Since I started at the middle school, I actually have had most of these kids since sixth grade that have stayed in choir. And so I know most of our choir kids. But even the kids that aren't in choir in middle school, but they join in high school, I know them because I've seen them around. But there were two girls that joined this year and I couldn't see their faces. And so I with the mask on and I didn't know anything about them. So I actually took a class period and I sang for the 30 minutes in class and then I stopped and I took the whole class out to sing, not to sing, to walk in this area outside. And when we walked in this area, a few kids obviously were playing Among Us, which I was fine with, but I made sure to walk with each one of these girls and figure out something about them that I didn't know. And it's hard work, but it's
We need the following students to
definitely,
the office, Mark
definitely worth
Robertson,
it.
Hagen
So,
Moore, Evan Sanderson,
you see my face now, maybe? I can't hear anyone. These school bells are ridiculous, y'all. Do I need to do anything else?
No, thank you so much. Yeah, sorry about the school bells. I mean, it's not your fault.
So sorry.
Do you have anything else you want to add before we go to Curtis?
Just be yourself and let the kids know who you are, and that actually helps with discipline. And be consistent with one kid, with the next kid, from day to day. And if you don't like it in class, if you don't like how it's going, then change it and then stay consistent with that. It's not too late to change things. It's not too late to figure out what kind of class you want. It's not too late. So, and be yourself. Don't try to be someone else. I can't be Matt and he can't be me. So we're different people.
Okay, Amber, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, Curtis, are you online, sir? If so, take it away.
I am. Give me just a second to share my screen here. Just finished teaching a class, so I'm trying to get that stuff out of the way at the same time too. Okay, so give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen and hear me okay. Awesome, good. Okay, so I am Curtis Miner. I have 13 years of teaching experience. I jumped on as Matt was introing, and I think he said 20 during the intro, and I was like, okay, it kind of feels like it. I don't know. So I have taught 7th and 8th grade for all 13 years. And my philosophy is, as far as teaching experience goes, is that you get 2 years of experience for every year of teaching junior high. So I'm somewhere around, I don't know, 26. So you really, what I've found is you really have to have your game together for junior high kids, or you lose them so quickly, especially in 7th and 8th grade. I started teaching at Washington Junior High first, and I taught there for 5 years. I had the pleasure and terror of taking over right after Andrea Ramsey and Clint Pianalto. And let me tell you, that is absolutely terrifying the first year, right? You're going in after somebody that everybody already knows, and you have to have your stuff together, and the kids kind of look at you like, you're not Miss Ramsey, and you're not as cool as Mr. Pinalto, right? So that was extremely nerve-wracking. After 5 years at Washington Junior High, I'm getting notifications of people going into the waiting room now as a host. This is kind of cool. I'm going to decline everybody trying to come in. I was offered the opportunity after 5 years to open a new choir program at Fulbright Junior High after 5 years at Washington, and to start a program there and build it. I'm also the ArkCDA president at the moment. Super fun year to do that. And I'm also a mentor teacher for Bentonville schools, which just means that when we get a new teacher in a music position, keeps happening. When we get a new teacher it's that doorbell is people trying to come into the meeting. When we get a new teacher in the district in a music position, I email with them and give them some advice. I go observe them from time to time. I'll start kind of as Amber did with a little bit of an overview of how I handle things in my classroom. And then some of the things that I see, common issues with new teachers that I go and mentor and see. Here's just first, you have to know that there has to be a difference between your procedures and expectations, right? So you have a set of things that you want students to do every day when they come into your classroom, and then you want them to do it a certain way, and that's your expectation. So my students, these are just a few things that I've found that have made my life a lot easier as a teacher. Everybody has a different situation, but these are some things that probably everyone could use. I have my students wait in the hall and wait to be invited in. I have found, especially with junior high, that makes a big difference. And it's something that I saw some of our other music folks doing when I first started and kind of started thinking about it. What's the most chaotic part of my classroom, my first year of teaching? And it was when they were all coming in and they're excited to be in choir and they're excited to see their friends. And you don't want to completely squash that. You just want to control the chaos some. And one way of doing that is just have them wait in the hall. I have a chance to say hello to them. I have a chance to talk to the kid that may have been a turd last class period, and to let him know that, hey, I'm glad you're back today and we're going to have a good class period. It's a good chance to show them that, hey, I'm not holding a grudge just because you were, not great in class last class period. I'm excited that you're here. And that makes all the difference in the world to some kids. I have them come in, get everything they need, and go to their seat. And something else that was, it's one of those like common sense things that now that I look back at it, but it made such a big difference after a couple of years of me just going, I don't want you to come up and be in my space, all 5 of you at a time, while I'm trying to play warm-ups, right? Like, if you have students coming up to you in the middle of rehearsal, instead of just like waiting till a break in rehearsal, or just raise their hand if they need something, that's a big one. And that's honestly one of the most common things I see when I go to observe some of our newer teachers that come in, right? Like go in other people's classrooms, you see people coming up to the piano while you're working through warm-ups or beginning of class activities. And as soon as the director gets, 3 or 4 kids in front of them, then you've lost your focus on the other 50 in your room, right? So just be mindful of those things. The expectations I have for my kids are super simple. Just be kind. I want them to know, and I also, so as Amber is not loud and intimidating and large, I am all of those things to a 7th grader. As I am framing my expectations, I am also in a lighthearted manner kind of threatening them a bit as I'm doing it, saying that, okay, you've got to understand that this is my space. And if you are unkind to anyone else in my space, I will end you and you will no longer be in my space, right? I have to frame these expectations for them very seriously, because especially with these like, I start the year telling them that guys in my guys choirs are stereotypically kind of, they tease each other and take things too far, and you can't be kind in that process. So we talk about how you can take things too far when you're teasing. So just don't do that. Be respectful and kind, and try to think of yourself as professionals when you're in here. And how would you act if this was your choir? Because this is your choir. I talked to the girls about the universal truth of junior high girls is that y'all are mean, right? Like, boys are dumb in junior high and girls are just mean to each other. And so we talk about how to be kind and supportive to each other in the classroom. I ask the kids to be present every day in class. I ask them to leave whatever bad day that they're having outside of the room, be mentally and physically present. That means that they're not on their phones, they're not doing homework for some other class, right? So that's the expectation, for them to be present, to be prepared. I don't think it's realistic for us to expect junior high kids to have a set amount of practice time and be actually honest about how much they're practicing, right? Practice logs are just an excuse for parents and kids to lie to you, so why bother? So when I asked them to be prepared for class. If we've been working on the same 3 pages of a song for a week, I bet by the end of the week you should probably have that learned. And if you need to use our practice tracks that are on Google Classroom to be successful, then you should probably do that, because you don't want to hold everyone else back. You want to play like you're on first string. You don't want to be somebody that's just satisfied with being on the bench because you can't learn your part, right? Ask students to do their best. That's just one of those expectations, right? I talked to them about how my best is going to look different than someone else's best. So in junior high, especially in a guy's class, you have to talk about, even though some crazy weird sounds are coming out of your neighbor's mouth right now because their voice is changing and cracking and everything else is going on, he is trying his best and you need to support him like he's doing his best, and vice versa. So those are some of the just common things that we do. I also think it's really important that we as teachers expect the same things out of ourselves as we expect out of our students. Too often we will set our procedures and expectations for students, and then we don't even take a minute to think about and reflect what we're doing ourselves. So these same expectations for the students I set for myself in class. I want to be kind to my students. I want them to know that every day they come into my class, it's a new day. If I had to address some of their negative behaviors last class, that doesn't mean that I'm even thinking about it this class. I may have a strategy for how I'm going to prevent that for this class period, but I'm not going to hold a grudge against it. And sometimes you have a student that just cannot learn how to rehearse, cannot learn how to behave in your class, and that's a possibility, but you have to treat every class period that they come in like a new day and expect them to improve, and 99% of the time they will. Welcome students. I try to welcome each day students with actual enthusiasm, right? I want them to know I'm excited that they're here and we're excited to do something today, and be forgiving to those less angelic. I try to develop a healthy sense of tunnel vision, meaning that especially right now, there's so many things to take your attention away from what you need to be doing during rehearsal time, whether that's the COVID issues, people being gone, news stories coming out, whatever, just peripheral stuff is going on. I try to have a healthy bit of tunnel vision just to stay on the task at hand. Those that know me well know I also have some pretty severe ADHD tendencies. So I have to work really hard to stay focused all the time in those class periods. And that's one of the things that I am constantly working on developing. Do your best. And this is a hard truth for some people. 99% of your students do not care if you're having a bad day. They care about coming to class. They're looking forward to coming to choir. They're looking forward to not being in math class. They really don't care what kind of a day you're having. However, the kind of day you're having, if you're not careful, can affect how that kid sees choir and how that kid develops a love of music. If you are in a bad mood and tearing into students and you don't have enough self-awareness to know that's what's going on, that can really, really negatively affect your rehearsals. Now, that being said, there have been times in classes where I have a student has done something during rehearsal, and I was having a bad day, or I'd had to deal with a lot of stuff in the last class or whatever. We're all human. And I have just ripped into a kid, and it was just way overboard for whatever small thing that they did. I then will talk to the kid and go, look, you shouldn't have been doing this. However, I really should not have done that. And talk to the kid. Tell them you're human. You made a mistake. And that earns you more respect with a student than a lot of other things. Be prepared. Plan what you are going to do in your choir rehearsal, including your warm-ups. If you are kind of fumbling through what you're doing at the beginning of class, that sets the tone for your entire class period. And most of classroom management, most of dealing with behavior is planning. Knowing what you are going to do and how you are going to do it so you can mitigate those negative behaviors before they even crop up. I plan my rehearsals in 10 to 12 minute segments. For the most part, our students' attention spans match their age until they get to be sophomores in high school. And then I think it starts going in reverse and their attention span gets smaller. So as you are planning your rehearsal, you've got to know that, like, if you spend more than 10 minutes on an activity, you're going to start losing them. And it's going to be a losing battle. Just scientifically, you will not have all their attention anymore. So don't spend 15 minutes on 4 beats of music, right? We all sat through those rehearsals in college where we were just obsessively working on a 4-measure phrase of music and trying to get it right. And you're in an entire rehearsal and that director is telling you, you know, you have to spend this time on this measure so that we can actually get this right. And you're spending all of that hour rehearsal on that. You cannot do that with junior high kids. I would probably venture to say that's not really a good rehearsal technique for college kids either, because I'm pretty sure college freshmen are just 7th graders again. So plan accordingly so that you are not encouraging those negative behaviors. I try to do some sort of transitional activity between. So if we are, for instance, last class period. So my class periods are 80 minutes long with 7th and 8th graders. So we do a lot of different things in a class period. So at the beginning of rehearsal, we went outside because, you know, happy COVID. Went outside, started with some rhythm activities outside, did some stuff outside, came inside, did some rhythm reading on smart music on the board, did a few warm-ups. We did a pattern recognition game so that they're getting some different rhythm patterns down. And then we move on to a song, and then we did sight reading, right? So then you do all these things that are all things you need to be doing in rehearsal, but kind of shotgunning them out so that you're not just in the same kind of vein the entire time. If you stop rehearsal, you need to know, this is still on the being prepared part. If you stop rehearsal, you need to know why you were stopping, not just we sang a page, we're going to stop and talk about it. You need to know why you were stopping, what you are going to address, and how you are going to address it before you stop them singing, right? I would venture to say that most of our pet peeves are we stop and students start talking and it just starts irritating us because we want to work on something and they're kind of talking over us. The reason they do that most of the time is because they've developed a sense of, okay, he's going to stop, then he's going to wait about 30 seconds before he says anything. So we're just going to start talking, right? If you immediately at the cutoff go back to beat 4 measure 32, work on this, right? And you bring them right back in, then they don't have time to talk. They start getting in the habit of okay, we're going to do something because he stopped, not we stop so we get a break. There's a big difference there, and that starts to mitigate some of those negative behaviors. Okay. This is the big one, and this is something that I struggled with a lot at the beginning, was just be understanding. There are some issues, personal issues that students go through, and this is what Amber was talking about, that we need to try as best we can to be aware of and be understanding of. Teenagers are not and should not be expected to have the same set of tools that we have to deal with our personal lives and to separate that out from our professional lives. Students don't yet have the skill set to know how to separate out what's going on at home and still be able to come to school and focus on school. They're not able to do that, and we shouldn't expect them to. So you've got to be understanding that sometimes their negative behaviors are because of what's going on elsewhere. Sometimes there are school and academic issues that maybe we aren't as aware of as we should be. Take time to look at those IEPs and 504s. I know some of us have big groups and a lot of IEPs, 504s, sped documents, those sort of things. You have to take time and look through those things. You are legally obligated to know that information about the students. And sometimes it makes a lot of difference on how you handle a student in class, knowing that they have certain issues that they're dealing with. The other one is choir issues. Especially with my beginning and concert groups at the beginning of the year, I give them some time to kind of figure out how to choir before I'm too awfully hard on them, right? Because I expect a lot of them. We start working hard at the beginning of the year, but I really work to be really understanding at the beginning of the year, because there's some of those kids that are in choir because there is nowhere else to put them, right? There are some kids that are only in choir because their friend was in there. And that's not really the kind of intrinsic motivation that we get from the upper level choir students. So you have to know that about your students. And again, that's a little bit of relationship building and knowing some background. This is the best tool in my toolbox. I cannot remember. I remember getting this from an in-service, and I cannot remember who it was from. And this just happened like 2 days ago. But my students know that they can save each other's lives during rehearsal. So yesterday in class, I had, this is in my advanced guys choir, so my advanced tenor bass choir. Lewis, who sits right next to a kid named Peyton. Of course, they're both junior high basses because knuckleheads, right? One was doing something, just making this weird noise, and then Lewis leaned over to him and just quietly said, "I think Mr. Minor's going to hurt you." And then just leaned away. And then it stopped, right? So it's something I did not have to address. So at the beginning of the year, I talk about save a life, save a friend. So if you see your friend doing something that is really going to irritate Mr. Minor, please do correct him quickly without making a big deal about it. I talked to him about what whispering sounds like, all those sort of things, right? And that mitigates most of the negative behaviors in our classes. They start getting really good at saving each other because they don't want to get in trouble in class, and they sit near their friends for the most part, so they can figure that out. Consequences.
I'm gonna jump in here, and we're getting close to wrap up time. Sorry to do that, interrupting stuff, but this is that Zoom stuff. So yeah, we're getting close to our next session. So if you could wrap up, I'd appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, this is the last little bit. So consequences and consistency. Big thing with consequences, know what your consequences are going to be for each kind of level of infraction that you have. So the big thing you got to figure out is it a big deal, right? Kind of like Amber was saying, there are a lot of things that'll happen during your choir rehearsal that are not really major issues. You should not treat them like major issues. There are things that you can quickly cut out of your life. And again, you're trying to mitigate behaviors, and you're not trying to nail the kid to the wall, right? So be firm and be fair with your students. De-escalate things, use humor, right? So it's okay to go, oh wow, that was, use a little sarcasm with a kid, and most of the time they will figure out that it wasn't a great behavior. Even your favorite student is going to mess up. Everybody has a favorite singer in your choir. They're going to make a mistake, and you should teach them what correct rehearsal behaviors are. We are teachers, so we have to also teach them how to behave during their choir rehearsals, as well as the music they are learning. Ta-da! Hey, look, that's the last one.
So anyway, thank you, Curtis and Amber, for your wisdom in handling classes. And never had the pleasure to teach with Curtis, but I know that his kids are fantastic, having done being a clinician of his kids. I teach with Amber every day, and I can tell you what she does works, and just find what works for you. So thank you very, very much. And sorry about jumping in and telling time was up. Folks, as we're dealing with this Zoom meeting, we have people like Curtis and Amber who are just taking off for about an hour and a half in the middle of the day. So we have to kind of stay on schedule. So that's why I did that. Curtis, I'm sorry. I know I felt like a jerk doing that. Not gonna lie, I felt sad. So we're gonna go on right to our next session, and this is our last session before lunch. So if we're gonna hang in there, then we'll get a break. So we have the next session is entitled "Boys Changing Voices." And this has been something that we've had requested for a long time.